Hunter, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Nice to have you here.
Great to see you, Knut.
Yeah, good to see you too. We had some long, interesting conversations in San Salvador just after adopting Bitcoin. I know I was done with all of my talks and all my interviews and all of the other stuff I had done, both historical and adopting. And then I finally got the chance to relax a bit, and that's when the real deep, interesting Bitcoin conversations happen. And you were part of some of that. I mean, I can't remember half of it, but we should. What did we talk about in San Salvador? Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, we talked about a lot. I especially remember when we spoke with Giacomo, and we talked about the topic of arbitrary data on Bitcoin, also known as spam. It's that really kind of set a few gears in motion in my head, just kind of thinking, like, what is the real impact of spam? Like, is it really like a violation of the non-aggression principle? And if so, how much? And what is the, because here's the thing, like, I got into Bitcoin not because I want to put JPEGs on a blockchain, right? Like, I got into Bitcoin because I learned about how bad central banking is and how much of an impact it has on our society that is not positive. And Bitcoin is the best nonviolent way to sort of get rid of that system in an organic and meritocratic way, just by simply being better. And like, obviously, like, there's more to it than just like, oh, this is the best thing. Like, because like if it was, then we'd all be using it already, right? But there's a lot of problems with Bitcoin that, still need solutions, like privacy and scalability and things like that. But it is certainly good enough to replace all the money that we use today. It is the best money we have. And I would never want to jeopardize that through my own actions or encouraging, like, irresponsible behavior. I mean, like, here's the thing. In a polite society, like, we actually, there are a lot of things we don't do, or at least we discourage, we criminalize, we penalize, we say, like, and as libertarians or cypherpunks or however you want to call yourself, as somebody who rejects the state, we often say that we don't need to be coerced or have a threat of force in order just to do the right thing. Additionally, we frown on things like that discount the future heavily, such as, for lack of a better way of putting it, there seems to be some sort of like weird, dark. I feel like we're really getting it like immediately right in the podcast, but we know each other. We've had these conversations.
No, but and I think our listeners want the deep stuff instantly.
Well,
yeah.
The thing is, like, I'm starting to become aware, as just somebody who's not very religious, I do think that there is a sort of spiritual war going on that sort of like, there's some dark stuff happening. I don't know if you've seen anything related to like Moloch worship or child sacrifice, or just how that discounts the future heavily by essentially exploiting those who can defend themselves the least.
No, those are weird. I haven't looked into it, but it sort of makes sense that, in ancient times you would sacrifice something vulnerable to, and it's like so many other things. It's humans like not understanding cause and effect properly, and we reiterate it. Right? Yeah. Well, it's you do something because you believe that it will. You use some means to try to reach an end of less uneasiness. And I think Aztecs who sacrificed babies on top of pyramids did so because they wanted to relieve some felt uneasiness, like everything else a human being does. It's not stating anything. Praxeology itself is not stating whether something is good or bad. It's trying to be value free in that sense. So it's only saying that, the person probably did, or the person must have done this because they thought that the future would be better for them if they did so.
That is a very grounded and I would say objective way to see that.
Yeah. It's an objective way of viewing subjectivity. Like I think there's one conversation with Robert Breedlove of all people that he said something that I think like put the nail on the head. That like praxeology is to the subjective what mathematics is to the objective. And I think that's a perfect way of putting it. It's like the logic of the subjective rather than the logic of the objective.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Like understanding incentives, first principles. Some people call it like values investing or whatever. I think I'm not into investing stuff, but the only thing I put my money in is Bitcoin. But I don't really consider that investing so much as just saving. But yeah, what do you want to talk about?
No, we were, I mean, I love this rabbit hole, and I want to, like, I've done several interviews now with people on the core side, people on the not side, and I've done my own takes, like on other people's shows, and regardless of what I do, I get shit for it from the other side. So that's, but I love this meta discussion about the whole thing, and I love the whole, like you were talking about property rights and property rights violations in terms of spam. There's, yes. I'm soon interviewing Konza, an Austrian economist, who's great, and he's always recommending a book by Konrad Graf, who's another great economist, called Are Bitcoins Ownable? And I haven't read the book, but the TLDR of it, as far as I know, is no, they're not ownable, because it's just a string of information, so it's not really ownable. What is ownable, though, is the hardware you own and the software you run in your home. So your node is your property, and you have a right to defend that from malicious use. So that is the ownable part. But the funny thing about Bitcoin is, since it's just remembering a private key, or the location of a private key, the PIN code, the whatever, 12 magic words, it is just a string of information that gives you the ability to act as if you owned the thing, because you control it. You sort of possess it, but possession is also too strong, since information is by its very nature not ownable. It's copyable. And even if the secret is where your hardware wallet is located, that information can be copied too. So in that sense, it's not ownable by the definition. Ownership is a relationship, a legal relationship between you and your property. And according to natural law, you have the rights to that if you homesteaded it, or if you acquired it by unviolent means, or what you thought was unviolent means. The thesis, and that I think I agree with, is that the node is the actual thing you own.
Interesting. I don't know about that for a number of reasons. One is, of course, like Sybil attacks and node IP voting, right? Like that's not really like how Bitcoin works. And also, like, a private key isn't something that's supposed to be copied by others, right? Or known by others. Like, you're supposed to have sole possession of it in like a traditional single sig scenario. And so, like, if you can keep a secret, which is a big if, of course, in this day and age, but essentially, it's a part of protecting your property is a secret, like is something that you can use. The secret.
Funny thing is that, sorry for interrupting, but the secret is the asset. There is there's nothing separating the secret from the asset. Like, the Satoshis aren't really on the blockchain or the time chain. The digits are there, but the ability to move them, which is the important part, is the secret keeping. It's all in our heads. Like, that's my thesis, and that's what I'm trying to. That's the view of this that makes most sense to me.
I mean, I can't dispute the fact that this is all just like a social construct. I mean, it's literally a currency, which is also a social construct. It's predicated on the fact that we can design like better ways to protect custody based on the asymmetry that we get from public-private key cryptography. And so that used to actually be like military-grade technology that wasn't like commonly available to the individual. And so we have people like Daniel J. Bernstein and all the people in the 90s who were fighting for that, the right to encrypt, and we're very grateful for that because encryption and signatures and all that stuff is privacy tech. That's freedom tech. That's nonviolent resistance. It's almost like how you don't necessarily try to like train a cat. You can't necessarily like instruct a cat what to do or punish them. It doesn't make sense to do that. You simply have to just prevent them from doing something that you don't want them to do. And that's
like confiscating sets, like the cat. That's the name of the fork, right?
Yeah.
No,
which is
you were talking
funny
about literal cats.
It's that all of that's really really interesting stuff. I have a lot to say on that too. I mean, like one thing that although I do recognize that there are good arguments against spamming the blockchain and making it harder for people to run nodes. And I mean, I think it's very important that we keep the block size small. I come from a generation of Bitcoiners that just kind of understood that's the case. I have also heard rather convincing arguments that, there might be reason to increase the block size. But despite working directly for a big blocker for a year now at Mara as my supervisor, I still will not concede that we need to increase the block size. I will not. I mean, like, we're not going to relitigate the block size wars if I have any say in it, other than just saying that we need to find other ways to scale, just as the financial system currently has other ways to scale. But the point I want to make about arbitrary data in particular, though, is that I think one of the engineering constraints we need to make sure we have solved is censorship resistance, and in particular, resistance against state actors. And when people bring up statist arguments like, oh, if CSAM or Muhammad is on the chain, then, nation states will reject Bitcoin. I'm like, well, or go after node runners or something. I'm like, you know what? Like, Bitcoin is designed to resist the state. And so, however we need to do it, in that we can make Bitcoin exist in a way that they can't interfere with, while also allowing us to run whatever software we want in the privacy of our own homes. I think that's like the better engineering constraint than necessarily preventing data that some people might find to be objectionable.
Okay, so I'm going to try to both dissect and devil's advocate that argument for the sake of conversation here. So when you say it's a social construct, I would use slightly different words. I call it an agreement on a fixed set of rules. And the reason we agree on this particular set of rules is that it's the only rule set known to man that is as robust as Bitcoin is, that has the 21 million coin limit, that has the halvings, that has the block intervals, like all of the things that we do agree on in Bitcoin. Like most of the parameters aren't mempool policy stuff. It's actual consensual, we have agreed to this and this is how it works. So if that is true, then code is not law, but consensus is law, which is what human beings agree upon. So the thing enforcing the rules is not really proof of work. It's what software people choose to run. And when they run a certain pieces of software, the proof of work works. But it works because we agree on a specific set of making it work, right? So with that out of the way, then the censorship resistance is not really in the code, but in what we as Bitcoiners collectively allow to go through the thing. And if we don't, some of us want to let some stuff through and others do not want to let some stuff through. That's why we run different mempool policy filters, right? and the different filter policies depending on our own preference on our own node. And some people say this is completely inefficient because they will be routed around, and it's a network that signals to, it goes fast anyway, and you need like 92% at least to have any effect at all. Still, the thing that at the end of the day sets the rules and carves the path forward is what we collectively agree upon is the limits of the thing. So, yeah, I'm struggling to find words a bit here. But I think, for instance, this cat fork that has been proposed, just the threat of that and the notion that something that like that could happen has already decreased the spammers' incentive. It has already removed some of the incentive for doing bad shit. Because all of a sudden, everyone's reminded that, holy shit, we're doing something that people accept but do not approve of. Like people unwillingly accept relaying it, but they do not approve of it. They do not endorse it.
It has a sort of moderating influence.
Yeah. So and who knows what happens in the future? And this is like the meta thing that I'm missing from the whole debate is like, it's all about human beings and what they choose to do or not do in the end. And that's what it is. And then that's why there's discussions of whether spam is an actual property rights violation or not. And I don't think it is. I think it is like, but nor is it a property rights violation for me if I receive spam from someone to choose to not relay it to others. Because no one forces me to relay anything. No one forces me to run the node. Like none of this would work if that was the case. So in your opinion, like where in the greater scheme of things, what secures Bitcoin? Like what makes this robust?
Well, there's a few factors. It's not necessarily cryptographically secure in its own right. It's cryptoeconomically secured. There's a market. There's a value for the energy required to secure it, and so it's definitely more real than proof of stake, which is also more vulnerable to like a 34% attack instead of a 51% attack. But I mean, what secures Bitcoin is the belief that it's valuable and the people who support the protocol, and in the various ways that it's designed to be supported and used, and that sort of disincentivizes many different kinds of attacks, including Sybil attacks and DDoS and spam of various kinds. So people would say like fees are the best filter, right?
Yeah, I mean the real threat in spam isn't that spam there would be so much spam that it would hinder people from or disincentivize people from actually using Bitcoin as money, and therefore it loses its value, and therefore every other proposition
that would be a huge problem if that were the case.
So that could be a potential state attack. Like if we can just spam this if we can print $1 billion of spam the network, we can stop it from functioning, and thereby people lose interest, and then it goes to underground again for a long time, hundreds of years.
Yeah, what's ironic is that like state actors don't necessarily think that way, though. They think of like markets and manipulating markets. They think of being able to print money and make laws. They think of just like a bunch of other fake and gay bullshit that they like to do that Bitcoin just completely sidesteps, and they don't really think about like the actual like fundamentals necessarily.
No, I don't believe so either. Like it's this dilemma between is the state is it the deep state and everyone's super smart and these secret agents and evil villains in their lairs, or is the state just fucking stupid?
Yeah,
like
and it can't be a both. Bunch of lifelong bureaucrat. Well, I mean, it kind of can, right? Because like, I mean, in the case of the United States, like there is a deep state and it's pretty fucking gnarly.
Yeah, but. Yeah, it's probably not at this stage what the people who like started these institutions up, like what they envisioned. It's not what they are right now. The FBI
did the founding
is not.
Fathers like would they agree with the deep? No, they would not. They would, yeah. In fact, the deep state is very anti-liberal, actually, like classically liberal.
Yeah, if you go back to the Constitution, like they would just shake their heads and say, "What the fuck are these people on?"
There's a ton of shit that the government does that is completely unconstitutional. Like even just like laws states make up, like there are unconstitutional laws, the Second Amendment, even the First Amendment. There are things that are just like blatantly, but there's still laws on the books, and it's just a reminder that the laws of man are made up, right? Like they're something that humans made. Humans are flawed. That we're just, none of it makes sense. And also, I want to get back to, you mentioned the cat, and, although I'm not necessarily supportive of the idea of oracleizing Bitcoin in a way that would like make it ordinals aware or stamps aware, because then you only need one more oracle to make it OFAC aware, right?
Yeah, but you also need consensus.
Oh, of course. I actually also the cat isn't based on. Wait, is that a consensus change?
Well,
so like BIP 110 or 444 formally, that's definitely consensus change. Knots is more of is a policy, a mempool policy change, right? But
and the cat is specifically surgically targeting these things.
But I want to make a point about the cat. And so I agree with you that its very existence and sort of popularity amongst a certain faction of Bitcoiners is a bit of a moderating influence on usage of the protocol broadly. It likely has an impact on these markets that, maybe make 1 Bitcoin a day selling JPEG pictures or something. And that's just not a very robust or deep market by any means. The thing is, I recently became a backer, like a financial sponsor of Brian Lunduke of the Lunduke Journal. He's a like kind of a podcaster, journalist who I'll call him a citizen journalist just because journalism has become such a sullied profession, almost like disrespected. Regardless, Lunduke, I like the guy because he's even though he hates Rust, he sees it as like a negative and I've been a Rust developer since 2018. I think it's important to push back on the radical leftists who would like to politicize and infiltrate and corrupt open source meritocracy. And so like open source should be a meritocracy of the marketplace of ideas, right? And so things should be based on their merit and not necessarily who introduced them or what they believed politically. It has no bearing really on like kernel drivers, right? Like it's dumb. And so I'm supportive of things that push back on things that corrupt an ideology that is counter to what is essentially merit-based and instead trying to push ideology, which is basically religion. Like it's not necessarily like anything founded in truth or objective reality. They're trying to push back against it with sort of social consent, sort of like peer pressure, right? And so like it's I'm supportive of things like that. And so I think the cat, is similar. I'm supportive of it, right? I don't necessarily want that to become how Bitcoin works, but that said, I support the ideas behind it in at least at a high level. Maybe not necessarily the implementation details, but I definitely like resonate with the thinking behind it. I also am careful about any kind of change to Bitcoin because I don't know about you, but like we live in a fucking fiat clown world, and I have to admit, like one of the few things keeping me like grounded and sane and not running for the hills to like join a militia to like fight against the deep state is Bitcoin. Is the fact that I can sort of I have a mission that is nonviolent right now, and if that mission becomes compromised, however it may be, I will likely my future will have a very different outcome, I think, knowing what I know now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, I try not to be a cynic, and I guess I tried to be an optimist before Bitcoin too, but it's certainly easier to be optimistic about the future when Bitcoin exists than before it did.
Yes, exactly.
Much more so, but the principles it's built upon are still true, and it's still existed before and will exist after, if there is an after. I mean, like, laws are man-made, you say, but I love the idea of natural law and libertarian thought of or rather praxeological law, natural law, whatever you want to call it, like first law that is discovered rather than just conjured up by some dude who thinks one thing is better than another. And I do believe that laws are discoverable. You can, if the goal, you always have to have some if, right? And if the goal is civilization, if the goal is civilized society, then laws are definitely discoverable, and it's property rights. That's the thing. There's only one human right that can be universal and for all times, and that is the right to be left alone. So I think all other thinking around this and what we ought to do and ought not to do and what ought to be forbidden or not should be based on that. And that can be tricky because there's so much nuance and it's kind of hard to get to the core truth of it. But if you have this cemented grounding or whatever you may call it to base your philosophy on, then it becomes easy what is and what isn't property theft.
I have the opportunity to ask somebody much wiser than me on this topic, this question that I get sometimes where, like the ideas behind, anarcho-capitalism or anything on that level towards that direction of freedom-minded voluntary exchange of goods and services is there are people who will use their money to do bad things, and how should we handle that?
Define bad things.
In particular, I think one of the more common arguments against that kind of philosophy is that an anarcho-capitalist powerful person could create some kind of child slavery or something.
Yeah, like we have now, public schooling.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty nonsense. I'm supportive of dismantling the Department of Education.
The way I see it, we already live in Anarcho-Capitalism, and we always did. It's just that some bad actors have a lot of influence on others. Like the most violent gang, the gang with a monopoly on violence in a territory, they can coerce people into certain behaviors. That's what we're living in, and it's more. It's not really a political philosophy. It's more of a lens through to view the world through. Is this morally right or wrong? And if it's theft, it's wrong. If it's property violation, it's wrong. And that goes for any type of aggression. If I take your stuff or if I violate your body, I'm doing something wrong. If I'm not doing anything wrong. Like if I litter, for instance, on my property or in nature and no one's property, like, who's to say what littering is? Who gets to define it? Like, did I litter or did I alter nature to make it into my whatever I wanted it to be, to art or whatever? If I tape a banana to a tree. So in my mind, it's pretty simple. Victimless crimes aren't crimes. And also I hear this all the time from people who misinterpret anarcho-capitalism, that everyone's going to scam everyone else. But scamming is not free market. Like it's a crime. It's also a crime in Anarcho-Capitalism. A free market does not mean a market where you get to take people's stuff by being insincere. That's not a scam. Is a breach of contract. It's deliberately fooling someone to steal their stuff. So that is not a part of the free market. An NFT is in a gray zone, I would say, because you could claim that it has value to some to have access to a certain, but you can also pretty easily make the case that is true for this. if it's that's why all the cryptos survive, right? Because the same logic can be applied to them as to Bitcoin in a certain sense. But if you look under the hood, you see that the Satoshi is truly special and has like events like the block size wars and stuff to prove that it's actually decentralized and secure and you can't be rugged.
Well, none of the others have the idea that all value is subjective?
Absolutely, and dynamic.
And so, in a way, like if somebody finds an NFT subjectively valuable and they like voluntarily without coercion, voluntarily like exchange their money for it, then it's hard to classify.
So the fraud though is not in that they find it valuable. The fraud is in that they say it's non-fungible and that it's a token. Because it's not non-fungible, you can put the same picture, you can right click on the picture and save it to your computer, and you have exactly and also like
that's a misunderstanding of NFTs though, right? Because an NFT is more of just a proof of purchase, really.
Yes, and but for instance, it's the proof of purchase of a picture. But that is the same as proof of purchase of a star in the Andromeda galaxy. Because if it's on the time chain, everyone can see it. I can see it. I may need a third-party website to see the picture, but the data is there for everyone to see. And I, as the owner, have no other things to do with it than anyone else has. So the very notion of ownership is... that's the scam. That's where the scam lies. You can't really own it because you can't do anything with it that everyone else can't.
Well, it's sort of it's the same problem of like tokenizing real world assets is sort of an Oracle problem, right?
Yeah. Token makes no sense to me since everything in the computing realm is copyable. I mean, this is why I fell in love with Bitcoin in the first place, is because the promise of something on the internet that couldn't be copied, or something in computing that couldn't be copied. I found that outrageous. Like how can something not be copiable? It's an
incredible idea. Yeah, and some of like NFTs, like they might be able to have the same arbitrary data with some kind of JPEG or whatever you can copy and right click save and create a new one, but it won't be the same one. There's a there's a record, right? A historical record of that proof of purchase that
but claiming that record is immutable, that's what's wrong. Like even if it's on the Bitcoin blockchain, it still requires a third-party website to actually assign the ownership.
You can run an indexer on your own.
Yeah, but there's no proof that will last forever.
It will last as long as Bitcoin lasts.
Not necessarily. If the cat, for instance, happens, it won't. So they're making an empty promise, even from that perspective.
To some degree, but like I would suppose that. I mean that whether Bitcoin will be amenable to arbitrary data forever is probably hard to say. However, and yes, things like the cat would essentially remove the capability to spend them, and so it would essentially have like a chilling effect on the market for it. But there's also like that doesn't necessarily disincentivize or prevent the archival use case, which is kind of like similar but different. And so like the thing is like we can't necessarily go back and just like take out all that has currently been mined on without like making it unverifiable, right?
No, I know. But so that is the promise that the NFT salesman sells you. However, the promise is. My point is that the promise is not as robust as as advertised, and therein lies part of the scam. The other part of the scam is that you can't really own data. Like data is by its very nature not ownable. All you can have own is a receipt.
Who owns a private key, then are you not the only owner, the sole owner?
But my whole argument from the beginning here, and this is quite fun, I think, because we're doing this argument thing here now, is that a Satoshi is not really ownable. You can just act as if you own it because if you have access to the secret, the secret gives you the superpower of acting as if you owned it, but it's not physically ownable. It's not by definition. You cannot own data
of a secret key, though.
I would say you can be the knower, but you have no way of knowing if someone else knows the same key or not. I cannot prove that I'm the only owner of a key. I can find it plausible.
Might be ways to do that, actually. There's a couple of ways. So, like, one is through quantum computers, like, because they can detect eavesdropping. And that's, like, one of the more, how would you say, like...
Okay, yeah, I hear you coming from a very much more technical approach, and me from the much more philosophical approach.
Well, which is, I think, a good balance, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's where we want to meet. Like,
yeah.
that's the part of the Venn diagram that we're looking for here.
Yeah. It's a good conversation. I mean, you're obviously a master of your craft. Much respect. I've been practicing mine for 13 or 14 years now. I feel like I'm good at. I'm a skilled enough protocol engineer now that I could speak to Bitcoin with some measure of, I don't want to say the word authority, but some measure of experience and skill.
Some gravitas.
Yes.
That's a good word. You should check out our latest sponsor, BitVault. BitVault is real hardcore Bitcoin security. They combine multisig with a time delay so that they discourage thieves from using $5 or $15 or $21 wrenches to bash your head in. This time lock function increases the risk for the thief, discourages coercion, and makes the whole act less likely to happen. Go to bitvault.sv right now and check out their offers. You can get a yearly subscription for $129, and it's a fantastic product overall. Brush your teeth. Our favorite hardware wallet is, of course, the Bitbox. Check out our friends at Bitbox at bitbox.swiss. There you'll find a bunch of different products, but the main one, the Bitbox O2 Nova with the Bitcoin firmware installed, is a fantastic hardware wallet, and the software that comes along with it has a fantastic user interface. It is one of my personal favorites. It's easy to use and it's super secure. It's my personal favorite hardware wallet. It's super slick, super privacy focused, and super easy to use. So go to bitbox.swiss, and Swiss, and use code Infinity for a discount. Check it out now. By the way, we're doing this in the wrong order. Like, my first question ought to be, Hunter, please tell our listeners who the fuck you are, because they don't know you. So, like, introduce yourself, please.
Well, I mean, if you go by what you hear about at X, I'm just like this gay furry that's attacking Bitcoin, and I talk about quantum computers a lot.
Yeah.
And
what are you apart from a gay furry?
Yeah, well,
interesting stuff.
That's probably the least interesting part of me, actually. You're right, and it's funny. I'm married. To a guy. It's legal here now. You know, I mean, we have discussed perhaps a divorce just to own the libs, just because we can, right? You know, yeah, but.
Did your baker bake a cake, and what was their struggle getting the cake baked? Like, I hear these strange stories from the U.S.
Oh, we did not have a formal wedding of any kind. Back then, it was just like, you know, like, that's just what gays did. You go to the courthouse, you file some paperwork, and then I'm thinking, you know, back on that, and I'm just like, wow, like that's really statist bullshit. Like, you know, yeah. I mean, are you married?
Yes, and I did a statist marriage because I didn't want to do it in church because I'm not religious.
Yeah,
and I realized in hindsight, like, what the fuck? I like Christianity more than I like the state, even though I dislike both. Like,
yeah, no, I like Christianity a lot too, even though there is some measure of like rejection. Either you can reject certain parts of Christianity that say homosexuality or wrong, which, like, I don't really want to like dwell too much in that, but the thing is, I think what I will say is that it's not for everybody, because if everybody was gay, then like we wouldn't have another generation to hand everything to, you know, like it would be the end of the human race.
That way, yeah, it would be great for that generation, I'm sure, but then it would all be over.
It would either that or we enter some kind of weird transhumanist like dystopia where the next generation is growing in the pods, comrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a developer and filled the role of engineer. I don't have a formal education, so I'm reluctant to accept the title of engineer. But that's essentially my title. I act as a protocol engineer, and I have a pretty good understanding of cryptography, but there's still a lot I don't know. I'm still learning a lot of things from the great people who have worked in that field, like Daniel J. Bernstein and also Ethan Hallman. He's a co-author of My BIP, and he's a trained cryptographer who works at Cloudflare. Which company do you like less, Mara or Cloudflare?
I would say Mara because I know more about them, but yeah.
I mean, I would say that Cloudflare has done more to harm the internet than really any other company. But also, I mean, arguably they provide a lot of utility as well. I should be fair and not necessarily yeah. But anyway, there's a lot to be said. Anyway,
but do you work for Mara now?
So I am a contractor.
Okay.
And also I might not work for they might actually split out some of their more like philanthropic stuff at some point in the future. So it'll probably be a different organization, but maybe with some kind of funding. I don't know.
Yeah, can you make Mara stop doing stupid shit somehow?
Well, I mean, like, I think that's a complicated question, right? Because, like, I mean, if you think of Mara as a state corporation that has a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders to maximize value extraction, like they're legally obligated to extract as much fees from operation however they can, right?
Oh, but this is given that they're denominating, they're equivalent, they denominate in dollars is what I'm trying to say here. If they were actually concerned about their shareholders and their miners or their hash salesmen, they would, their main objective would be to make sats last forever. Like the longevity of the Bitcoin network would be top priority, right?
Of course, but the thing is, they're state capitalists, right? Like the thing is, I as an agorist, I sort of identify more with agorist thinking in that they make a distinction between, an ordinary like entrepreneur who isn't necessarily trying to benefit from the monopoly on violence that the state has to their own personal benefit, like a state capitalist or Cantillionaire would, right? Like, I think that sort of like as a state corporation, they have to play by the fiat game. And the fiat game isn't like to make long-term investments that pay off well into the future. There, it's to make as much money as possible for shareholders now.
Which is so retarded. Like that is the case.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. It's short-sighted and irresponsible in the long run. Yeah. I do agree with that.
So educate me here. Why is it a state-run company? Like I don't know how this works. Like,
well, I mean, like any corporation that registers and pays taxes to the state is, in my opinion,
you mean in that way? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's all based on fake and gay man-made laws.
Funny you should use that word, but it's spelled Ghey, right?
Right, of course, right.
There's a distinction there.
Maybe.
I hope people won't review bomb this episode like they did with the Stranger Things thing, with the coming out scene.
Well, first of all, that was not
super
something
cringe.
Very cringe. I think this what we're talking about here are very serious issues, and probably the most opposite, almost as far as removed it from like woke Hollywood slop. Then
we're talking about actual strange things.
There are some strange things,
not CGI animated.
There's some real monsters out there, actually. Yeah.
And I mean, if a brief side note on that Stranger Things thing, I think this, I laughed my ass off when I saw that got review bombed, because it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as preachy as Hollywood used to be, like a couple of years ago. And they were completely tone deaf during COVID, you know. So, yep. But I find it hilarious. Like, Peak Woke was a Marvel series called Echo, which is a Native American, slightly overweight, lesbian, deaf woman that is a superhero for some reason.
It hasn't even crossed my radar, honestly.
No, but I think the whole woke, I think people, they're so fed up with it now. So whenever they shoehorn in something like that, they get completely bombed because it's super unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
the era is just over. Dead. Yeah,
I think that actually put people like me in harm's way, because you know,
absolutely,
like that should be a private thing. That should be not something we encourage or celebrate necessarily. It's something we should just not do anything about, because it's a private thing between consenting adults, right? There are definitely. I have big problems for when the agenda is being used to corrupt and indoctrinate the youth. I mean, that's the future, and fiat has a way of discounting the future and extracting value from the people who can least afford it, especially like inflation, right? Inflation impacts the poor far more than anyone else. And in many ways, like when you were saying, like we were saying, you know, there are monsters. There are real monsters out there. I would say like Jerome Powell is like one of those, like any central banker really, like has like a lot of, let's just say, sin to account for at some point.
Absolutely. We're back.
But,
no, but we're back to the beginning of the conversation, sacrificing infants. That's what we're doing. We're using fiat money. We're sacrificing our kids.
It is.
It's awful.
It hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, like I recently read an Arthur C. Clarke novel called Childhood's End.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read it?
No.
It is probably the most depressing ending I've ever read, ever. It's like basically, well, I won't spoil the book, but I mean, all the children have to leave, and they just. And then that's the end of humanity. Like, everybody just loses hope, and it's over. It's over within a few years. It's all over. It's really sad.
Did you see a movie called The Mist?
No.
It's one of my a pet favorite movie of mine, where there's a big mist coming to a small town, and there's monsters in the mist.
The Stephen King novel. Yeah, that guy's like woke as fuck, and
No, but the film adaptation is Frank Darabont. It's the guy who wrote Shawshank Redemption, wrote the screenplay for that. So it's great. Like, it's none of the woke garbage or anything like that. It's
or like kid rape or something.
It's from before that. But they there's tentacles with fangs and stuff coming out of the mist and taking people away. And the ending scene is super depressing, because the guy has 4 bullets in his gun, and he gets to shoot his family to save them from being torn apart by these monsters. And as soon as he's done, he's not got no bullet for himself left. The mist settles, and there are no more monsters, because the military won, so he didn't have to do that. It's a wonderful ending. I love everything goes to shit endings, by the way. I find them amusing for some reason.
You should definitely read that book then, Childhood's End. Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Yeah, the gay stuff and the woke stuff. Like, if I was a homosexual, I would hate pride parades, because I would be embarrassed by them and all.
They're embarrassing. Yeah, frankly, absolutely. That's why I push back on the woke stuff. I push back on that's. I voted for Trump. So did my husband, and I mean, there's a lot to say about that too, but one of the major reasons we both did that was just to sort of do our part to send the signal that this has to stop. Like, this woke shit is not helping anybody, except for maybe pushing a radical, weird agenda that nobody wants. And transgender in particular is a topic that is really only important to maybe less than 1% of the American population. And it's just interesting to me to see the left really like kind of die on that hill of like a less than 1% issue. And if you have a problem with that, that's also a good illustration of the tyranny of the majority, right? People say a lot of good things about democracy, but there's a lot of bad things about it as well. It's in my opinion, there's no one right person to put in charge over a country of hundreds of millions. Like that makes very little sense. Hayek, he talked about the use of information in society or use of knowledge in society. And he said, basically like command economies don't work. One size all fits all solutions, put on everybody are inefficient. And in an inefficient market, you get scarcity, you get starvation, and that's why socialism, communism, command economies just don't work. And conversely, on the other side of it, one of the best examples of that proved Hayek right was the fact that after the horrors of the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution from Mao, and all the nonsense he had in his Red Book, all the stupid shit he'd say about planting, seeds 3 times closer together, and you need to take all your agricultural implements and take all the iron out of them and send them to Beijing or whatever. It's like all that nonsense. Here comes Deng Xiaoping. And Deng Xiaoping, the reformer, he comes in and very humbly looks across the pond and he sees all the great success the Japanese economic miracle is having. And he humbly comes over and he asks them, what did you do to make that happen? And you know what they told him?
They didn't do shit.
No. What they told him was they needed to have a bank in every village.
Uh-huh.
And that arguably is what led to the rise of the growing Chinese middle class and the prosperity they enjoy today, because they were able to empower more economically incentivized actors in the economy to not have a one-size-fits-all solution, but have a bank in every village. That's the very opposite. It's very capitalistic, actually, in the free market sense. And it's in many ways like the rise and just success of China is validation of Austrian economics.
Yeah, and it's the same, the fall of the Soviet Union. I talk about this all the time when Gorbachev came over to the U.S. and saw that they, in the one-horse town in the middle of nowhere, they had more food than he had ever seen, and he was the very elite.
I mean, if you haven't already, I mean, look up old footage of Soviet grocery stores, how depressing they were.
Yeah.
And then for contrast, you'll drive maybe half an hour and you'll go to a Buc-ee's, or a Costco, and you're just like surrounded by abundance and it's glorious. Have you been to a Buc-ee's yet?
I believe I've ever been to a Buc-ee's.
We should, next time we're both.
I've been to Costco.
Yeah, we should. Oh yeah, Costco is probably one of our better exports. I think it has achieved some success outside the U.S., right?
Yeah, I think so too, but I think the ones I've been to have been in the U.S. I don't remember though. Like a supermarket is not. But
it's incredible, right? Like it's incredible. Sign that like the fact that we're capable of economically sustainable supply chain like that without necessarily an enormous amount of government subsidy. It doesn't go free of government subsidy because there's a lot of subsidy of dairy and oil and all sorts of
Yeah, but it would be even smoother and even more efficient without it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and all capitalism is just a voluntary exchange of goods and services.
Yeah, and that's what you saw the Milton Friedman about the pencil, right? I don't think he wrote it, but he does a very good version of it. And if you want to find local Bitcoin communities, other Bitcoiners, Bitcoin merchants, and Bitcoin events in your area, there's no better way to do that than through the Orange Pill app. Wait a minute. It's not the Orange Pill app anymore. It's Club Orange. Club Orange is an Omni app that includes a lot of features, including a list of events, a wallet where you can send and receive sats over the Lightning Network. You can even geo-zap areas, so you can send sats to a whole bunch of people in one single area. You can also tap zap while you're chatting to someone, which is a new feature that I don't believe exists anywhere else. Overall, a fantastic app for connecting Bitcoiners all around the world. So go to cluborange.org and sign up today. You won't regret it. It's not just a gay dating app, it's everything else too. You can use it for... forget about that. Go and sign up. cluborange.org. If you want to really secure your Bitcoin, you should check out the Bitcoin Advisor. They have never lost a single sat, and they take care of your stack together with you. They can't use your stack. That's impossible. But they can help you with inheritance planning. They can help you hodl the Bitcoin long-term. So go to thebitcoinadvisor.com to find out more. And brush your teeth. Anyway, the interesting parts. We've been through the uninteresting parts about you now. But what about BIP 360? Tell me about that.
Yes. So
Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 360. What is that?
BIP 360 is essentially we've whittled it down into basically the smallest thing we think we need to change about Bitcoin that will then essentially give us the position. We'll be much better positioned to adopt and make use of, as it makes sense to, post-quantum cryptography. We need post-quantum cryptography not necessarily because Bitcoin is vulnerable entirely right now, but in the BIP, we're very careful to explain that there will probably be a distinction between the kind of quantum computer needed to attack Bitcoin if you had all the time in the world with the public keys exposed on chain, and if you only have 10 minutes at most. And if the money gets moved to a different key before you're able to recover that key with your quantum computer, then you've essentially wasted a lot of energy and compute, and you lost your chance at those coins. And so the distinction between a long exposure attack and a short exposure attack, which is what I just described, could be quite substantial because of the kind of quantum computer needed. However, Bitcoin is about 2/3 resistant against long exposure attacks and basically 0% resistant against short exposure attacks. That said, short exposure attacks we consider to be a much longer term problem. We don't need to solve it necessarily tomorrow, though we will need to have standards if we want to build software that's designed to be future proof for the coming halvings and generations. Ultimately, what BIP 360 does is it resolves a concern with Taproot in that every Taproot address is an exposed public key, which can be used to spend the coins if you can derive the private key from that public key using either algorithmic break in what's called the discrete log problem, or DLP, or an elliptic curve cryptography, or if you're just able to, in a way, brute force it cleverly using Shor's algorithm on a cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Even if that scenario is not something that manifests, something that already is real is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in markets that sort of acts as a quantum discount on Bitcoin's price, which, as I mentioned earlier, its value is part of the security model. So if we don't value Bitcoin, then people won't mind to protect it, and so it'll languish and not be able to protect all the wealth that it currently does, and at a protocol level. And so I think the quantum FUD is probably one of the most salient pieces of FUD out there. There's a lot of lower quality FUD that we've all heard in the past. It's just tulip bulbs, or it's going to be e-waste, or mining is wasteful. Daniel Batten, I don't know if you see his stuff on Twitter, but he is very methodical and meticulous and deconstructs all of those arguments.
He's great. He's great at talking to his crowd. He's definitely great at that.
Yeah. And he is able to address a lot of that FUD quite effectively. He recently paid me a compliment on X, and that just made my day, because the most I care to do is just write a BIP and then say that you're gay if you sell your Bitcoin for FUD. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to just say, you're afraid of quantum computers? That's pretty gay.
So, okay, so let me see. There was a lot to unpack there. Let me see if I can pose a question here. The reverse thing is, you think people will value Bitcoin higher if they know that it's quantum secure, if it's provably quantum secure?
I know for a fact that is the case. Yeah.
So that is one of the arguments for if there was a robust way to show that Bitcoin cannot be cracked by quantum computers ever. So all this altcoiner FUD, the shitcoiner FUD that spreads every time people start talking about quantum computing can be discarded.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the motivations for actually making it quantum proof, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So. And this is a question Luke pointed out that I should ask. How big are these BIP 360 transactions?
Well, that is a good question because it has a nuanced answer. It is very complicated. So actually, BIP 360 in its current form, after being rewritten 4 times with a bunch of feedback, and I've added not just one but 2 other co-authors, it actually doesn't introduce any post-quantum cryptography. It doesn't deprecate. It doesn't deprecate or introduce any form of cryptography other than the fact that it creates a new address output type that is basically the next version in SegWit. So the original native SegWit addresses, they start with BC1Q. Those are hashed. Those are fine. They came out in 2017, right? Taproot SegWit v1. So the original was SegWit v0. SegWit v1 is Taproot, also or Payto Taproot, P2TR. Those are problematic, but they do add a very useful property, which is the capability to commit to essentially a Merkle tree of scripts, different scripts that you can decide which one you want to reveal at spend time. That is really important for enabling sort of signature scheme choice in your wallet. So if you are worried about quantum computers someday, and you think you'd like to prepare for that possibility where you may need to send some money and you don't want to necessarily worry about this threat, you can sort of pay a premium and it will make use of cryptography that's harder. That is not specified in BIP 360 itself. We had to break it out because it is such a complex and deep rabbit hole. And so we're just trying to make sure that we fix this flaw in Taproot so that we can then in the future decide what is a better signature scheme for Bitcoin. And that's still hotly debated.
So how big are the transactions?
To answer your question, there will be no increase in size for sending money to one of these addresses. And in the future, you will have the option of either using the standard cryptography that ships with Bitcoin already, so there's no increase, or you could opt for more expensive post-quantum cryptography, which could be anywhere from 100 times bigger to maybe 10 times or 5 times. I don't know. There's a lot, but maybe 3 or 5 times. It depends. It depends a lot on what we choose to do, and also there might be even a future or possibility where we figure out how to scale post-quantum cryptography on Bitcoin according to the proposal that Ethan made earlier this year. Actually, it's about 6 months ago. He talked about something we later called BitZip. Basically, it's a Starks-based signature aggregation mechanism that could potentially solve the scaling problem of Bitcoin on layer 1 as well to some degree. Might give us 10x the throughput or bandwidth from Starks. So that might be one option.
This is hard for me to follow because it's deeply technical. So when can people expect a wallet that has a service that says quantum proof your coins now, and there's a slide and you can just push a button and they move them into a quantum proof address?
Well, the interesting thing about Bitcoin is making any change to Bitcoin itself is very difficult, which is good and by design, and not something we should necessarily disparage it for because that's one of the bigger reasons why it's valuable. We can sort of upgrade the cryptography off-chain and side chains that are secured by Bitcoin and merge mined with it, and even pay miners fees, but the thing with sidechains, of course, is that they have different trust assumptions that are less than ideal.
Yeah, and they give the miner another incentive, and that is also pretty dangerous, isn't it?
The concerns around drive chains, for example, like BIP300, right?
Yeah,
that they could introduce like an incentive to perform MAV. The kind of sidechains I spend time thinking about are the kind of sidechains that either add new cryptography, like novel cryptography, or scalability for the payments use case. If there is like kind of like a bit assets protocol to it, that's useful and helpful, but that's only useful and helpful if you couple it with monetary payments. And so I think that I don't spend too much time on all other units of account, other fungible token prices, right, or TGEs, right, or that kind of bullshit, right? Like ICOs, like that's none of that makes any sense to waste an iota of like my precious time on Earth on.
Of course not.
Find it to be very boring.
Well, the use case is scamming people.
Yeah.
And I find it funny because when people say there's a class of Bitcoiner that refuses to say all shitcoins are scam. They say 99.99% of them are scams, and therefore they safe both ways, because they leave out because there might be something that isn't a total scam. But why bother?
I think it comes from a place of intellectual honesty in a way, right? Like you don't.
Yeah, but it's honest and dishonest at the same time, because it's in the same vein of saying that your company is Bitcoin first. Like, that means shitcoins if you're Bitcoin first, you are a shitcoiner, right? Because why aren't you Bitcoin only?
That's kind of funny there. Because that also sounds a little bit like America First, and America First is supposed to be more conservative than MAGA, like Make America Great Again, right? So you have MAGA, you have America First. I don't hear of people who are like America Only, right?
And I bet those people exist though, but I'm not sure I would want to meet one.
It's not a great analogy, but it's just something I came to mind as sort of like like a counter to the maximalist point. That for me personally, I consider myself firmly a Bitcoin maximalist, but I also am I'm a Bitcoin maximalist not because I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist because I'm a meritocracy maximalist, right?
Yeah.
And and I think Bitcoin is the thing that has the most merit, and by far, because anything that could be implemented on these shitcoin protocols, if it has merit, if it has sufficient merit, I think we'll find a way to make it work with Bitcoin in a way that would satisfy the demand regardless, using layers.
I'd love to hear your thoughts about the one-shot principle from my second book, Independence Reimagined, because I tried to put it into a short couple of sentences, as few sentences as possible, why Bitcoin is irreplicable or irreplaceable. And the one-shot principle goes like this. It's like absolute mathematical scarcity. I would say finiteness nowadays, but it was scarcity back then. So absolute mathematical scarcity in a sufficiently decentralized distributed network was a discovery rather than an invention. It cannot be discovered again by people aware of this invention, since the very thing discovered was resistance to replicability itself. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think I would agree with that, so long as Bitcoin retains its position as the thing that is successful. And
yeah, because the interesting thing, I think, when I think about that, if it turns out to be untrue, then none of it can work. Because if you can replace Bitcoin, then the whole purpose is gone, because you can just replace the next thing with the next thing with the next thing. Like, right. Either you have this finite thing or you don't. Like, either you figured out resistance to replicability or you didn't. And
do you think the War of the Currents is a good analogy? Like how like AC sort of won out over DC because it can go further without attenuation losses, at least with older technology.
I haven't thought of it that from that perspective, but it's a quite good analogy, even though AC versus DC is 1 out of 2 and not 1 amongst 5,000, right? I would like the wheel analogy. So like you can construct a hexagonal wheel, but the circle is the best way to construct a wheel, and Bitcoin is the best way to construct
but that's not a great analogy either, because even though like there's the wheel, well, in a way, it might actually be a good analogy because, okay, so let's say the wheel shape is Bitcoin, not necessarily
exactly. That's
like
what I mean. The circular
detail,
shape,
right? like a stone wheel and a Goodyear tire are essentially the same thing in that analogy, because it follows a specification.
Yeah. But to me, Bitcoin is not the wheel, but the Bitcoin is the circular shape that shapes the wheel, and the wheel is money.
Yeah.
So, so you can use other money, and you can use other shapes for wheels, but one shape is obviously better. Yeah. Like that's the analogy. It's a bit of a weak analogy, but yeah.
Well, the other thing is, it'll also be complicated in the Anarcho-Capitalism utopia, right? Because they don't have roads, and they all fly in UFOs or whatever, because we get the deep state technology that they've been suppressing all this time.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that we don't have roads in Anarcho-Capitalism. Damn it. We have to start over again. The other analogy would be like discovering America. Discovering Bitcoin is discovering America. Can you do it twice? Well, a lot of people argue that it has been done several tidifferent by different groups of people, but
yeah. Well, and anyway. Also, that is also a good analogy in a few different ways, also because like as Bitcoin ages, we have sort of this this thing where we sort of have the eternal September. We have people learning, that like they'll learn about Bitcoin, and then the next day they're like, I'm new to Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it, right? And like it's just like this tells all this time of just like seasons, newcomers, things like that. And in a way, like the discovery of America has happened several times in history. The Chinese, like, arguably knew about America, but then they burned their merchant fleet inexplicably because I guess they were afraid of too much, and then there was the Vikings. There was, of course, the Anunnaki, and I'm sure you're aware of the Telosians, the Atlanteans, the Lemurians,
the Klingon, the Dothraki. Yeah. Everyone was there first. The Huts. Yeah. Well, is there anything we haven't covered yet that you want to talk about before we wrap this thing up?
I forgot about the Agarthans.
Agarthans?
They also have caverns. Yeah.
Agarthans have caverns. Okay. What?
There's the
I guess that was. I guess that was adding to the previous point.
It's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's not.
Literally.
Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation, but I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty soon. It's pretty late, getting pretty late here, and I have to get back to my family. But before we wrap up, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to mention?
If anybody is curious about the work we're doing to make sure Bitcoin is ready against these deep state faggots who broke our crypto, please look into our work on bit360.org. I also have a Substack, cryptoquick.substack.com, and on X, I'm CryptoQuick as well.
You're saying that very quickly. Maybe that's deliberate. CryptoQuick. CryptoQuick. Yeah. .com.
And also on Nostr, my npub is npub1qq. It's got a bunch of other, But,
yeah. I'm sure people can find you there. They have to hunt for you. Yeah, so good. Hunter, my gay furry friend, quantum resistant friend, this has been a great conversation, and I hope to see you in real life. Are you coming back to El Salvador, by the way, in January?
Not in January. That's too soon, unfortunately.
All right. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure we bump into each other at one of these conferences, and you're welcome back on the show at some. Looking forward to our next conversation already. This has been great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bye.